Voters in the United Kingdom won't be celebrating the 4th of July tomorrow. That's not new. What is new is those voters will be heading to the polls. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is fighting to keep Conservatives in power, but the Labour Party, led by Keir Starmer, is widely expected to win enough seats to claim a parliamentary majority. If that happens, it'll be the first time in 14 years the two parties will have switched spots in the House of Commons. Lilia Luciano joins us now from London. So, Lilia, I'm sure you saw it. I've seen it, a tweet or whatever we call it now from the Prime Minister. Stop the supermajority. Vote Conservative on 4th July. That sort of concedes the point, doesn't it? Majority already going to swamp the Tories, and all that's left is staving off a supermajority. Doesn't sound very optimistic.
It's not optimistic at all, Major. I mean, Sunak also said there's a fight in the underdog, that the game isn't over until the final whistle goes. Mel Stride, who's a pensions and Labour minister, basically conceded, too, and this is before people even went out to vote. There's millions of people voting, and we're hearing that kind of messaging. But the reality is that the final polls, the major polls, say that Labour will win the largest majority, hear this, for any party since 1832. I mean, Conservatives are expected to lose 70% of the seats that they won 5 years ago. Back in 2019, they had 365 seats. They're projected to win just over 100 seats. Labour is projected to more than double the seats that they have out of a total of 650. Even some of the biggest names of the Conservative Party might lose their seats. So the prospects are not great for them. I mean, what I hear from people here and have been asking for the last couple of weeks that I've been around is, look, this is not even about Brexit. This is not even about the widening gap in inequality, not even about the economic shocks that people have undergone in the last 14 years that Conservatives have been in power. This is about the scandals. There's been so many scandals leading up to having 5 different prime ministers in the last 8 years. And people, of course, are blaming the party that has remained in power for that time. There's also something that I find very interesting is that Keir Starmer has moved away from the left-wing socialist wing of his party, and found a great deal of success in moving towards the center, in appealing to people who are disenfranchised or disenamored or unenchanted, call it what you may, by the Conservatives, and might have not gone for a party, for the Labour Party as it was under Jeremy Corbyn, which was very much further to the left. They call him a flip-flopper. They say he is not shiny and new, that he's not charismatic, but somehow he's been able to establish something that we've seen, Major, not just in politics in Europe or in Latin America or in the U.S., but something that you hear a lot of pundits talk about, and it's the need for somebody in the center to not allow or let the far fringes of either movement or either parties really get the loudspeaker. And of course, coming back to the U.S., it's something that Biden stood for. But at this time, we'll see what this all means for U.S. politics.
Lilia, I want to pick up on that observation about Keir Starmer refashioning the image, at least in his light, of what the Labour Party stands for. To the degree he has defined it, what's the agenda?
I mean, what he has been trying to say is, look, we need to remove the people who've been in power. And so I think part of the strategy and part of the analysis has been, even though he represented the far left, and he was very much a champion of Corbyn when he led the Labour Party, he's changed that stance, because I think what he calculated, the estimate is that all you need to do first, the first and foremost biggest priority, was to remove Conservatives from power, which is interesting because in the rest of Europe, I mean, what has been gaining momentum and speed and galvanizing voters has been those far-right movements. I mean, you would expect that if the UK were to follow the footsteps of, say, France, as we saw in that first round of voting for their parliamentary elections, you see Marine Le Pen's party win so sweepingly, if that's even a term, but have such a sweeping victory, that might here translate to somebody closer to that far right, closer to Trump, here being Nigel Farage, who represents the Reformist Party, smaller party. They have no seats in the Parliament, in the House and Commons, but what they do have is a great deal of support, 15% support among voters. And so perhaps that might grow, but I do think that it's interesting to watch this election and see somebody who stood for something that might have been seen as far left, as more fringe, move to the center and say, look, we need to change things, and the way to change things is to change who has that majority in the House of Commons, who is in power. And in this case is somebody who's not regarded as a very exciting leader by people here by any stretch of the imagination, but somebody who would just change what they fear the most, which is things maintaining in that same status quo where you've had all of these scandal politically and economically and instability overall under the Conservative Party.
Lilia,
Saying
very
that
quickly,
as a way because of the politics in the U.S. and all of these concerns about who, if not Biden, is there going to be a big a big contention or a big competition among other people? Well, in this case, it's not necessarily the most popular leader. It's just not the one that they don't want.
Lilia Luciano in London, thanks so very much.
Thanks.